All right, so today's gonna be a fun video because we're gonna be turning this rifle into this, which is essentially the perfect, or at least ideal, purpose-built long-range AR-15. Let's go. Hey folks, Gary here with Paramount Tactical Solutions. So today is gonna be a fun video. And originally I was planning on shooting this video as a review of this particular rifle. And what this rifle is a Sons of Liberty Gunworks M89 broadsword. It is their model of rifle, AR-15, small frame, that is specifically purpose-built for long-range precision. This is a 1,200 plus yard gun and basically the same overall form factor as a standard, 223 5.56 AR-15. And we're definitely gonna do that. You're gonna see a performance review of this rifle without a doubt. But before we even get to that, I think it's really important that people understand what goes into building an AR-15 that performs at distance, right? Not only, we're gonna talk about caliber, we're gonna talk about the different components, how to set this gun up properly, all those things. And I'm definitely gonna be going over the different products and accessories that I chose for this particular build. And by the way, this is my personal build, and it's definitely a premium build. But this is not a video about products. This is a video about principles, what you need to be thinking about if you're setting up a rifle or you want a rifle that is going to perform at distance. How to choose the rifle, the caliber, the components, and then probably more importantly than all of that, how to set it up properly so you get the results that you want without, going through the things that I've gone through in the past, all the failure points, and getting rid of some of the misconceptions that people have about long-range precision in a semi-auto gun. All right, so if you want an AR-15 that can perform at distance, the first step is caliber choice. Now, it wasn't too long ago where we could only get most ARs in as far as an AR-15. I'm not talking about a larger frame AR-10. In a small frame AR-15, basically we were relegated to 5.56 223. And there's nothing wrong with building out a precision AR that is chambered in 223 or 5.56, but you are limited by range with that. Typically, if it's a really good rifle, you're using really good ammo, you're kind of stuck around the 700 yard range or so. 223 and 5.56, you can get a lot of performance out of those, but they're definitely not the best calibers when it comes to long range performance, nor are they the best calibers when it comes to versatility. Luckily, there's been a lot of new calibers that have come out, like the 6 Arc, and more recently, the 6 Max, which is what this rifle is chambered in. These new 6mm projectiles in AR-15 are phenomenal. We're getting, out to 12, 13, 14. Some even say they're getting consistent hits out to 1,500 yards. I think 1,200 yards is about what you can expect to get out of like a 70, 80% hit rate with a good rifle, good ammunition. But I think, it's a 1,000-yard gun all day long. Now, the next question, I'm gonna go into a lot of detail on this because we've done some podcasts and there's some other videos out there, is that what is the difference between 6 Arc and 6 Max? What are the advantages, disadvantages? The main advantage that you're getting with the 6 Max over the 6 Arc is you're using a standard 5.56 223 bolt face. With the 6 Arc, you have to thin out that bolt face to make it wider, and they have had some, issues with reliability and things like that. We actually had the developers of the 6 Max on our podcast. You can go check out that. And also our good friend Ray Helms over at the X-Ring, he did a full video on a 6 Max, actually this very similar gun from Sons of Liberty, that he won a DMR match with that. So you can go check out those, and there's a lot more information out there available on the 6 Max versus the 6 Arc. Both of them are great cartridges. I do think there's some advantages over the 6 Max, and that's why I chose it for this particular build. Another really cool advantage of both the 6 Max and the 6 Arc is that they're gonna use a standard AR-15 lower. So many of you already own that, so we can actually decrease the cost on whatever build that we want. It's just a matter of switching out uppers or buying the upper, which is gonna save you some money and give you a lot more capabilities at distance. All right, so now that we've determined whatever caliber that you decide that you're gonna want, there's some things that you need to consider when picking your AR-15, or at least the upper with that, and really the lower plays into this as well. You actually want a barrel and upper that was designed for precision long range, that's purpose built for that. And what's really nice about the Sons of Liberty Gunworks rifle is that they did that, right? They purpose built this for long range precision. This barrel is much thicker than you're gonna see on most AR-15 barrels. This is a SPR profile barrel. It is their precision stainless steel barrels. I've already seen good performance out of these on other people using them. I can't wait to see what kind of accuracy and precision we're gonna get out of it once we start reloading rounds for this as well. This being a more robust, thicker, precision match grade barrel, it's gonna be a lot less likely or less prone to thermal shifts. As we shoot a gun, the barrel heats up and we start getting shifts if that barrel is thin. All of them will do that eventually, but again, we're getting more repeatability and we're gonna get more rounds down range before we start to experience that with a thicker barrel. The other advantage of a thicker barrel is it's gonna be less prone to harmonic shift as well. So these are all things that we wanna consider if we really want a gun that's gonna perform at distance. You can't just buy, any AR-15 off the shelf, throw 6 max in it or any other good cartridges and expect really good long range performance. The barrel and the overall build isn't set up for that, and you're just not going to get the results that you want. Some other key features about the Sons of Liberty Gunworks that are going to contribute to reliability, repeatability, and precision is also how this forend integrates and attaches to the receiver itself. This actually dovetails into place, and then the way that these bolts these fasteners tighten down, basically turns this thing into a very monolithic piece. We don't have our forend out here rattling around, causing harmonic shift or anything like that. So this is an extremely well-made, well thought out, well-engineered rifle that, again, it was purpose-built for precision. And whether you're getting a Sons of Liberty Gunworks or any other brand, those are things that you're gonna wanna look for. Now with the lower receiver, look, if we have a lower receiver with a lot of tolerance where it's shaking, there's movement in between the upper and lower, folks, that is going to cause impact shifts. You are introducing different variables that are just hard to overcome. We're just not gonna get the repeatability that you would want out of a long-range precision rifle. And with this one, folks, there's absolutely zero movement between the upper and lower receiver. The tolerances on this rifle from front to back, top to bottom are extremely tight. Everything about this is extremely well made. The other really cool thing that they did with this rifle with long range in mind is they actually extended the rear of the lower receiver. They actually designed this lower so that the distance between the grip itself and the trigger is much further than a standard AR. That greater distance is gonna allow you to index that trigger more properly and give you a much more consistent trigger squeeze each and every single time. And I have cleared this rifle. I know we have the magazine in here. On a standard AR-15, I have to index my trigger finger almost to that first crease or that first knuckle, whereas this one, it is just much more in line. It's gonna allow me to pull that trigger straight to the rear. And all the other features in this rifle are exactly what you'd expect from a premium AR-15 build. They just sprinkle in a couple of extra things or design features that are going to contribute to long range performance. You do get a ambidextrous charging handle, you get ambidextrous safety, ambidextrous mag release, and bolt release. And folks, the trigger that comes installed in this rifle is unbelievable. This gun is cleared. It breaks like glass. The reset on it is very good. I actually did a trigger pull weight test on it. It's about 3 pounds, 11 ounces. Now this is a 2-stage trigger. I probably will end up switching that trigger out. I personally prefer straight triggers and single stage triggers. So I'm probably gonna put an Elfman Tactical in this rifle after a while. For the initial review of this rifle, I'm gonna keep all the performance parts pretty much stock, just so I can give you a good indication or analysis of how it comes right out of the box. A lot of the things that most of us change, including me, are preference issues, and that's completely up to you. But I'll tell you, there's nothing wrong with this trigger. This trigger, it would almost, I may end up not changing it. It is really, really good. It's a great trigger, doesn't need changing, but again, I do like straight triggers and I do like single stage triggers, so that's definitely something I'm gonna consider changing out in the future. So just to recap on when you're choosing a rifle, if you want an AR that's gonna perform well at distance, folks, some things that you gotta get are heavy, match grade, precision barrels. You have to have very low tolerances in all the components. If you just grab a standard mil-spec AR-15 off the shelf, you can outfit it with the best scopes on the market, the best glass, the best accessories, and you're just not gonna get the precision and the repeatability that you would like at distance. It's just not gonna happen. So just understand that. All right, so now let's talk about the different accessories I chose for my personal build. And a lot of people call these rifles different things: an SPR, special purpose rifle, DMR, designated marksman rifle. They're all saying the same thing: a long range AR-15. And that's what this is built for, and everything on this has a purpose. and I'll go through and I'll show you what I chose, why I chose it, but then I'm also going to give you some other options and recommendations, because this is not about the products I chose. This is about the principles that goes into choosing those accessories, and there's lots of different ways to skin this cat. All right, so the first thing we'll talk about is optics. This right here is a Zero Compromise ZC 4-20, and that is a 4-20 power magnification range. I think that range is just about perfect for this style of rifle. 4-20 to 25. Now, is there anything wrong with putting a different optic on there that's going to give you more magnification? 5-25, 7-35, nothing wrong with that. But these are also kind of designed so that we can engage close targets out to distance as well. So I like the fact that I can go all the way down to 4 power, and quite frankly, even though this is an 18-inch barrel, I could still, if I needed to, I could still clear a house with this. And I've actually done that with SPR style rifles in both combat and training. So this optic allowing me to go down to that 4 power is going to give me an extremely wide field of view. And if I need to engage close quarter targets, I can still do that as well. Now, do you need to spend, the money buying a super premium optic like this Zero Compromise? Absolutely not. There's lots of great options out there when it comes to that magnification range that I was talking about. Everything from the Zeiss LRP S3, the 4-25. This is a really, folks, I think the Zeiss LRP S3, whether you're getting the 6-36 or the 4-25 by 50, this optic is probably the best bang for your buck out there, and we do sell those. We're a Zero Compromise dealer, and we are also a Night Force dealer, and for a budget options, we also offer Athlon scopes as well. I think those are really good optics for the money, and you're going to see a lot of reviews coming out on those. So, if Zero Compromise, Night Force, or Zeiss isn't in your budget, we have plenty of options for you, and we'll be glad to help you out with that as well. And we'd also appreciate if you go to ParamountTactical.com, and for all your gear needs, you purchase from us. We only sell items that we've personally tested and we believe in, and it really does support this channel and helps us out. And we try to give back to you as much as we can as well. So buying the best quality optic that you can afford in that 4-25-ish power range, I think, fits the purpose of this overall build. And I don't care if you're talking about hunting, competition, duty work, whatever it is, I think that 4-25 is the way to go. The one thing that you've got to use when mounting an optic on an AR15 to get the proper eye relief is a cantilever mount. Notice on this mount, it's very different from a standard mount, that we have the mount itself, it cantilevers forward, and what that does, it gives you some additional clearance. I always try to avoid having a mount that is going to be bridging between the receiver itself and the forend. So you can see the way this is set up, I can actually have a couple more slots available to me that I can move this optic forward before I'm bridging or clamping onto the receiver and then also onto the handguard itself. You don't want to do that. As well as this is designed, could we have these bolts come loose? Yeah, we could. But the other thing that's more likely is I could end up dropping this rifle, damaging this rifle to where I hit that forend really hard. And because I have mounts bridging from the receiver over to that forend, now I'm going to create an offset, and my point of aim is going to shift. So we want to avoid having that problem by keeping all of our mounts onto the receiver itself. If you're putting a magnified optic on an AR, folks, you're going to need a cantilever mount. We need to be able to position that optic forward so we have the correct amount of eye relief, and then we're not bridging the gap between the forend and the receiver. All right, so let's talk about the other thing I'm going to change on every single one of my ARs that are set up for kind of long range precision, and that is the butt stock. So the Sons of Liberty Gunworks comes with the standard mil-spec B5 systems butt stock. It's a great butt stock, but it's just not what I want for a precision rifle. The butt stock I ended up going with on this build was the B5 Systems CPS, collapsible precision stock. We'll talk about this pad in just a second. But what I love about this stock is, number one, it does allow me to still collapse this if I need to. I just pull down on this tab and it allows me to collapse that stock. I like that feature. I've had the Magpul PRS stock on builds like this in the past. There was times when I, whether it's putting into a bag or just having a smaller form factor, I like having a collapsible stock, but I also wanted something that's going to allow me to adjust my cheek riser height as well as my recoil pad. And this kind of gives me all of those options. It's very tight. There's literally no wiggle in this thing. Once you get it adjusted where you want it, you slide this button forward. This thing is tight. It doesn't move at all. And I love that. Now, regardless if you go with this stock or we're talking about a precision bolt gun or a gas gun, one of the things that you've got to do, folks, is you've got to set that gun up to you. And if you haven't seen my video of how to set up a rifle so that it fits you and you're not constantly adjusting to the rifle, go watch that. So what I did with this is I used the principles I talked about in that video, and I made sure that when I laid on this rifle and I just opened my eyes, everything was in perfect alignment. I had the right length of pull, I had the right eye relief, I had the right height, sort of. The cheek riser on this was about, I don't know, about a 1/4 inch shorter than I would have liked it to be. The other thing I didn't like about it was the fact that I would be putting my face just on this plastic and, you know, it kind of slides off and things like that. But that's true even with most other stocks, like I said, like the Magpul PRS stock. Now, we actually sell these Weebad mini stock pads, and I believe this was the stock pad. And I just kind of looked at what we had and what I thought would fit this gun. Browning X Bolt, I don't know, I'll put it somewhere, I'll put it over there. So if you end up kind of replicating this. And again, you can buy these at ParamountTactical.com. They're on our website, and we appreciate the business. Now, these are designed to go on bolt guns, and it has some Velcro tabs, and all I did was cut those off. I had laid down 3 strips of, there's actually 3 different, like 5-inch strips of Velcro right here. Now, I actually had to super glue the hook portion of the Velcro to the pad itself. The adhesive, there's some material back here. The adhesive on the back of these just wouldn't stick. So again, we threw some super glue at it. And I intentionally put the pile or the softer portion of the Velcro on the stock itself. So if for some reason I lose this or whatever, I'm not putting my face down on the hook portion, because that would suck and you don't want to do that. So the 2 problems I had with the stock was that the cheek riser didn't go up quite high enough, and I didn't like just that bare plastic on there. So this mini stock pad kind of fixes both of those problems. It indexes it perfectly. The other thing that I did is I went ahead and put a witness mark on the buffer tube so that I know exactly where the stock position is. That's perfect for me. You know, if I store it in a collapsed position, I know right where it goes every single time, and it's quick and easy, and I don't have to go through that entire process of readjusting the gun to me every single time I shoot. All right, so what we have right here is the MDT Vertical Grip Elite. I put vertical grips on all my guns just about now. And we can look at some of these precision bolt rifles that, whether you're shooting PRS or F-class or whatever it is, NRL, most of us have moved to these vertical grips because it allows us to index our finger, and our trigger squeeze is more consistent and straight to the rear with these vertical grips. Some people still prefer an angled grip, and that's fine. But what this adjustable grip allows me to do is, if I want to angle it, I can. This is completely tunable to the user. So I have this set up. It allows me to move it back and forward. It allows me to angle it, all those things. So I've tuned this grip so that it is perfect for my trigger finger and how I pull the trigger, and I get a consistent pull each and every single time. And a vertical grip is a great addition to any AR and or a precision bolt gun. Now, this is the Elite, but you can also get the Premier. It's a little bit cheaper, and it's more of a hard plastic as opposed to this hard rubber, but it's gonna get the job done. And I think they're like $50 cheaper than the Elite. So take that for what it's worth. All right, so now let's talk about this side of the rifle, and probably one of the most important components that you can put on any gun, and that is the MDT LRA Send It level. These come out of the box just like this, and you can put it on a rail. It's gonna stick out quite a bit. They have additional mount to where you can make it vertical so it's not sticking out nearly as far. Now, between the way that this rail was and everything else we had going on with it, I decided to use the M-LOK mount that allows me to attach it to the M-LOK rail. That gave me the best visibility of it. You know, a lot of times I tell people not to do this because your forend or your chassis could be out of alignment with your action and or your scope base. Typically the best place to put these is a scope base. With the way that this is constructed, I am not, and I tested this by the way, I'm not worried about this necessarily coming out of alignment as long as I make sure these are always tight and they have, you know, thread locker on there, all those good things. The way this is constructed is one of the few rifles that I would actually trust putting it onto the M-LOK portion of the handguard. But it is definitely a safer bet to put it on the rail portion back here. Just the way that I had this set up, I didn't like the way it fit back here on the pick rail. It was really no difference if I put it on the handguard out here, on this Picatinny rail out here, than put it down there. And that was just kind of out of the way for me, but it still gave me good visibility of those indicators to let me know if my gun was not level. Folks, to shoot distance, really to shoot anything, you gotta have your gun level. When you zero your gun, you need some sort of anti-cant device. Now, this particular mount for the zero compromise does come with this bubble level. These analog bubble levels kind of get lost in the sauce, right? We forget about them. These blinking lights, you don't forget about them. You're gonna know when your gun is level. And if you wanna make hits at distance, you gotta have your gun level. If you start introducing cant, you are turning windage into elevation and vice versa. If you zero that gun with some cant built in, you have completely, it's gonna cause you a lot of problems. So whether it's analog or digital, make sure you got a good level, especially when shooting long range. All right, so one of my favorite accessories that goes on all my long range gun is this Hawkkill data card. This is by far the best data card solution that I have found. It articulates many different ways. You can put it out of the way. It is a plastic card that we can write on with a grease pencil or a wet erase. I actually like to put Velcro. It comes with these 2 strips of Velcro right there. I actually like to put Velcro on both sides. This will actually, you can actually Velcro a Kestrel to it. I can have 2 different sets of data cards I can just pull off and switch out for different reasons. But I'll tell you, for competition, and I wish I'd had this when I was actually operational. If I was a designated marksman or a sniper, this is something that I would have in every single one of my guns. And if you're shooting competition, whether it's bolt gun or gas gun, or you just want to be able to have your data on hand so that you're making hits, you know exactly what your dope is, it just doesn't get any better than this. These are on our website as well, the Hawkkill data cards. Those are just a great addition to any rifle. All right, so down here we have some AccuTac PC4 bipods. I use quite a lot of different bipods for different situations. For a general purpose, kind of do-it-all bipod, it doesn't get much better than the PC4s, the AccuTac PC4s. Folks, I love this bipod. It is so robust, it's heavy duty, it's gonna last you multiple lifetimes. They have a lifetime warranty on them, they're American made, all those things. We can easily adjust cant, and then I can actually tighten this a little bit to where I can still move the gun, but it offers me some resistance, and that's where I like to keep it. On the front, this is one of the few bipods that allows us to pan left and right, and for a gun that's set up so that I'm covering a large sector, or I'm possibly engaging multiple targets at distance at different azimuths, all right, I want to be able to pan left and right without constantly moving these bipods. It's such a pain to be able to. You need a bipod at a minimum that's going to allow you to cant, to adjust your cant to make sure that gun's level, but having the ability to pan left and right is also really nice. You know, we just simply adjust it like that. If we need to lower it, we hit those buttons. To adjust the leg, we just push them out like that, or pull it, and then we can actually get them at a 45 front or back as well. So as far as like a general purpose, very versatile, gonna cover you for 95, 98% of all your shooting situations. You really can't go wrong with that AccuTac PC5. I love those bipods, I really do, lifetime warranty. If you're putting a bipod on a precision rifle, at a very minimum, you gotta make sure that it's robust and you know it allows you to cant left and right. The other thing, people don't realize this, you want a bipod that doesn't flex. Even when I extend this out and I'm actually loading these bipods, folks, I don't get any spring back every time I shoot this gun and it has some recoil. A lot of the bipods out there, you're getting a lot of flex out of those bipods, and when you squeeze the trigger, boom, comes off, that recoil is going to bounce back and it completely takes you off target. So, you know, when I'm looking for a bipod, I want something that's going to be extremely rigid, that at a minimum is going to give me some cant left and right so that I can make sure that my gun is level when I shoot. Huge bonus is being able to pan, especially as far as these do. There's some bipods out there that give you like a couple of degrees left and right. Man, this thing is like, I don't know, that's probably what, 90 degrees, 70 degrees, something like that. So that's a really nice feature as well. All right, so another super important piece of this build that I think is critical, and I do this to almost all my ARs, even my more lightweight ones that I use for CQB and things like that. You can see we have an M-LOK rail down here. M-LOK, if you're mounting things like a bipod that just have a like M-LOK mount, folks, that the surface area that's involved there just isn't a good contact point. Also, Picatinny rails. We've used Picatinny rails on the bottom of guns and things like that for a mounting surface of bipods and other accessories. They're good. They don't compare to an Arca mount. This is the 10.25, just like that you have here. It's perfect for this particular rifle that has an 18-inch barrel. I love the fact that we have 4 different fasteners on there. So there's a lot of surface area that is attaching this Arca rail to the forend itself. That Arca rail is going to spread the stress of what do we put on there and deal with it much better than a Picatinny mount. So Arca rail is the way to go. The other thing this does for us is it gives us not only an attachment point for many different accessories, but it also gives us a flat surface. So if we're doing positional shootings and we don't have the luxury of a bag on hand and things like that, it gives us a nice flat surface that we can actually, use to get stable and shoot off of, so that we can make hits at distance, even when we're not using a bipod or some other accessory, some other shooting accessory like a tripod, bipod, whatever we got going on. The other advantage that an Arca rail has over pick rail is that I can throw these levers at 90 degrees. I can move this wherever I want and lock it down, as opposed to a pick rail. We got to take it off. We got to find where we want it, index it properly, tighten it back down. Arca rail is just the way to go. We're going to start seeing that integrated in almost every rifle in the very near future. We see that already with long-range bolt guns. So you're going to future-proof your rifles if you upgrade to that. And it's an easy upgrade, gives you a lot of advantages over Picatinny and some of the other options like M-Lock out there. So upgrade to an Arca rail, you'll thank me, I promise you. All right, so the next thing we're talking about is weight. Weight overall. Some things that you need to understand conceptually and from a principle standpoint with long-range shooting, but also these additional weights that I've put up here. We're going to cover that. I'm going to tell you the why behind that. But before we do that, if you like content like this, make sure you like, subscribe, throw a comment down below. That really helps us out. If you're not already, make sure you go follow us on our other social media sites. We do a lot of cool things on there. And also every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, right here on YouTube and Rumble, we have our live Dangerous Liberty podcast. We talk about guns, gear, training, politics. We read your comments. We take your questions. You get to be part of the conversation and contribute. It's a lot of fun. So make sure you tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, right here on YouTube and Rumble. All right, so let's talk about weight overall. This is a question I get a lot and a discussion I have several times a week. I get people on the phone or comments or emails, whatever else, say, Gary, I want a lightweight long-range rifle. I don't care if we're talking about a gas gun, semi-auto like this, or a bolt gun. That's what they want. They want something light and precise. You need to understand that lightweight and long-range, precision accuracy, those are diametrically opposed. Those two things do not go together. Just like I was talking about earlier, lightweight barrel in a lightweight gun is not what you want for precision long-range shooting. As a matter of fact, some of the most precise rifles out there are like bench rest guns, and those things weigh like 70 plus pounds. And the reason for that is they have really heavy barrels, and they also have a weighted rifle so that it mitigates recoil, it rests better, all those things. Now, obviously, we don't want this to be a 70-pound rifle. So we got to find a good compromise that makes sense, that is determined by our use and other contributing factors, maybe our health, our ability to carry a rifle. If we're carrying this rifle, in the backcountry, I don't want a super heavy rifle. But what I need to understand is that if I'm going with a really lightweight rifle, repeatability of accuracy is going to go down, right? The heavier the rifle is with really good components, the more precise, the more repeatable, the more accurate it typically is. If we go with lighter weight components, a lighter weight rifle, we're not going to get as good repeatability. We just need to understand that. So this rifle stock right out of the box is 8.1 pounds as it sits right here. This rifle currently sitting without the bipods is 14 pounds, 15 ounces, 15.2 ounces, something like that. So out of the box, this match grade heavier profile barrel, we have a heavier rifle to begin with. This rifle, as it sits without the bipods, is 14 pounds, 15 ounces. So we'll just say 15 pounds. What that's going to do for us is, number one, it's going to give us a much more stable platform that is going to mitigate recoil significantly. We already have a light recoiling cartridge in the 6 Max to begin with, but with this additional weight, we're going to stay on target with every trigger squeeze. That, in addition to this is the MPA DN5 brake. Obviously, on this one over here, you can see that this comes with your standard A2, bird cage, flash hider. It is 5/8 by 24 as far as the thread pitch if you're getting a 6 mil cartridge, and that's gonna be almost across any barrels. If you're getting a 6mm cartridge, it's gonna be 5/8 by 24. It's typically not gonna be 1/2 by 28. So with this DN5 MPA muzzle brake, but this isn't just a muzzle brake, it's also a compensator. We can see how these cuts go vertical. So what this is doing, typically when we have a muzzle brake, it's gonna reduce the amount of backward pressure from this rifle on the recoil. One thing that most muzzle brakes don't do, and we don't often think about this, but regardless of how good the muzzle brake is, we're gonna get some vertical shift or that muzzle flip as well. This is by far the best muzzle brake I have ever used. And this is the 6.5 version. It's still gonna work just fine on a 6mm as well, but they also make them in 30 cal. Folks, this is the best muzzle brake I've ever used. There's nothing else out there in my mind that touches it. And I do a lot of testing on muzzle brakes. Been really impressed with the MPA DN5. They also make a DN3, which is great as well, but the DN3 doesn't have those vertical cuts that are gonna give you a little bit of compensation as well. So between the weight of this gun and this muzzle brake, we're going to mitigate almost all recoil. We need to be able to stay on target through that recoil pulse so that we can see our impact or our miss and then send a follow-up shot if we need to immediately. So I don't care what rifle you get. If you get a DN5 MPA muzzle brake, you will thank me. You will thank me. ParamountTactical.com, go get yours today. So finally, let's talk about these M-LOK weight kits that we have here from Gray Ops. We're a Gray Ops dealer. These are great kits. Weight's important, all right? Weight's just gonna make our guns so much easier to shoot. We're gonna stay on target, all those things that we already talked about. While overall weight is important, the other thing that's just as important, maybe more important, is balance. You can actually have a lighter rifle, and if that thing is unbalanced, number one, it's hard to shoot from positional shooting. Anything other than prone, it makes it very difficult to shoot if it's really rear heavy. On top of that, it can also feel heavier just because it's kind of unwieldy and it's not balanced. This kit allows me to balance this out, and it also allows me to set this up so that it is a good performer when we're talking about, positional shooting. So before I put this weight kit on there, this thing was extremely rear heavy with this heavier optic, all this other things. So now I have this balanced where the balance point is just in front of the magazine well, which is where I want it. Adding a little bit of extra weight and making sure that that weight is really well balanced is when you go to do positional shooting, folks, the gun is just gonna settle and sit there naturally. You're not gonna have to muscle that thing into place. And a heavier gun not only is gonna mitigate recoil, but it's also gonna mitigate those little natural shakes that we all have. But you also need to figure out what makes sense for you. Regardless of how much your rifle weighs, trying to figure out how to balance that rifle out like we have here is what you want. But this rifle being 15 pounds is probably not the best one to go, backcountry deer hunting, which by the way, 6mm is such a great deer cartridge, deer and other small game. The versatility of what these 6mm cartridges do in this platform is just, it really doesn't get any better than that. But the point is you gotta figure out what makes sense for you and what you're using this rifle for. You might wanna add the additional weight on there. You might wanna put more weight, I don't know. For me, this gun being 15 pounds is perfect. This is exactly where I want it to be. I can still move this gun around. I can still carry this gun for multiple miles if I needed to. And it's still gonna perform really well at distance. So you gotta figure out what works for you, both from a budget standpoint and overall build standpoint. Another thing we didn't talk about at the beginning of this is choosing the barrel length. A barrel length will also help you balance the gun a little bit. Maybe you want a 20-inch barrel or a 22-inch barrel. All those things are available to you, and that's gonna change not only the performance, the muzzle velocity, but also the balance of this gun, and those are things that you need to think about and could be a benefit to you. Now, we're talking about balancing this gun on this 2x4, which number one, most of the time we're not gonna be balancing on the contact point, we're gonna have something on the rail, right? But this 2x4 is also like a worst case scenario. You're usually not gonna be shooting off just a 2x4. You're definitely not gonna see something this narrow in competition typically. But once we mount this, something like this Mini Plate Pro Pad, I actually have that mounted on the Arca Rail itself. And now, look at that. We have a great balance point going on right there. I can even pull this back just a little bit. But most of the things you're gonna be shooting off of are gonna be significantly wider than this 2x4. So if it works on this 2x4, it's gonna work on just about any obstacle that you're actually shooting off of. But this is what we want, folks. We want the gun to just sit there. We're letting the gun do all the work. We're just sitting back there making sure that the reticle is on the target where we want, and we squeeze the trigger and we apply the fundamentals and we should get a hit. We shouldn't have to muscle this gun into place. And if it's not well balanced, you're not going to be able to do that. All right, folks, well, we covered a lot, and hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that was informative, but hopefully it gave you the information you need and the principles, most importantly, behind choosing a caliber, choosing how to set that rifle up, and the accessories that you're going to need to get good long-range performance out of a small frame AR15 platform. And that's what this was all about. I'm sure I left some things out, so if you have additional questions, leave those down in the comments below. Or better yet, just join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. live, and you can ask me directly, and I can give you a much more direct answer, and we can have that conversation back and forth. That's one of the reasons that we have that live podcast every Wednesday, is so that we have good communication. Talking down the comments is not very efficient, and a lot of things get lost, and it's just not a good way to communicate. Well, all right, well, while Guns and Gear is great, what we're really about is training, so make sure you go to ParamountTactical.com. Go check out our upcoming training schedule. We'd love to have you out. We'd love to meet you in person. Everything from handgun courses, tactical carbine courses, long-range courses, medical courses, driving courses, you name it, come train with us. You'll be glad you did. And for all your gear needs, we'd really appreciate it if you go to ParamountTactical.com. We only carry gear that we've personally tested, we believe in, and we're gonna stand behind. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.